Alright, so welcome back to Arc Nova. So, this is basically part 2 of how the sponsor cards work. So, we're going to start with some easy ones for this video. We have already covered about half of them, so hopefully we'll get through the rest of these in this video here. And some of the last ones are some of the hardest, for sure. So, Herpetologist. Each time a reptile icon is played into any zoo, you get 3 money. So if you're playing with a lot of players, obviously this is a good one to have if because most likely someone is probably going to play a reptile into their zoo. So it's going to reward you for 3 money. So a very interactive card for sure. Ornithologist. Each time a bird icon is played into any zoo, you get 3 money. So it's just like the Herpetologist, except it's with bird icons instead of reptile icons, right? You get 3 money. Cool. Okay, Expert in Predators. Each time a predator icon is played into any zoo, you get 3 money. So there you go. 3 money. Awesome. Cool. Primatologist. Each time a primate icon is played into any zoo, you get 3 money. So just like the other ones, except it's with primate icons instead, obviously. Expert in Herbivores. Each time an herbivore icon is played into any zoo, you get 3 money. So just like the other ones, except it's with herbivores. Okay, so that's some of the easy ones taken care of. Okay, this one's actually pretty easy too. Guided school tours. You get 1 conservation point for 5 different animal category icons. So at the end of the game, if you have at least 5 of the 7 animal icons in your zoo, you're going to get a conservation point at the end of the game. And then playing this in your zoo is going to give you the instant benefit of getting 1 conservation point and 1 appeal as well. So this one is just a really good card to get, especially in the beginning of the game. Okay, the Foreign Institute. Now, this one, obviously, you're going to need to use an X token or something in order to play this, because it's a 6-tier location. The Foreign Institute is going to give you the instant bonus of 2 reputation when you play it into your zoo. And then at the end of the game, you'll get 1 conservation point for 5 different continent icons in your zoo. So, how many icons are there altogether? Well, there's exactly 5. So if you have all 5 different continent icons in your zoo, somehow, some way, you're going to get 1 conservation point. Okay, Archaeologist. Now, this one was a little harder for me to grasp at first, but now I get it. Okay, so the Archaeologist. Maybe that's probably because I haven't had the chance to actually play this card yet. So, Archaeologist, you're going to need 1 reputation. You're going to need 1 science icon already in your zoo before you can even play this into your zoo. But then each time you gain the placement bonus of a border space in your zoo, you gain another free placement bonus of your choosing, or of the one you gained, I mean. So you get another free placement bonus, which is cool. So what it means is when you place a tile down, if you cover a placement bonus and it is on a border line, and like for instance on the beginner zoo maps, there's 2 reputation on the very top corner of the map, and it's a border space. And when it's covered, you get 2 reputation. That's a placement bonus. And so this is going to let you get another free placement bonus as well. So you're getting 2 if you have an Archaeologist in your zoo. But that's only if it's only including the ones that are actually adjacent to the border line of your zoo. Okay? So still, there's definitely some benefits. There's definitely more than 1 placement bonus that's adjacent to a border, obviously. And then at the end of the game, all border spaces that you cover, if you covered all the border spaces, then, meaning you've pretty much surrounded the entire zoo, you're going to get 1 conservation point at the end of the game. Okay, Breeding Program. This was another one of those difficult ones. Okay, in order to play this into your zoo, you're going to need 2 science icons ready in your zoo. And then when you play this card, you place 2 player tokens on it, okay? And then when you support a base conservation project, you may discard exactly 1 token from this card, okay, as any icon. So, for instance, let's do a for instance. So let's say you wanted to support a conservation project that required 3 Africa icons, okay? And that's what you were going to do because you have 3 Africa icons in your zoo, right? But let's say you want the extra conservation points, but you would like to maybe support the 4th one, which is 4 Africa icons, but you don't actually have that, right? But if you had this card in your zoo already, you could remove a cube from this card to basically count as an additional icon, additional Africa icon. So now you actually have 4 Africa icons instead of 3. You have 4, and you get to support that one instead. So that's the beauty of the breeding program card. That's what it's going to do. That's what it means. But it only works for the base conservation base conservation projects. What are the base conservation projects? Those are the ones that you start with in the beginning of the game. As you know, you might play a base conservation card later down the road. It's not including those. Just the 3, or if you're playing with 4 people, the first few that you play with in the beginning of the game. It's only including them. Okay, so that's how that works. And then you get 1 conservation point for 5 supports of conservation projects. So if you supported 5 conservation projects at the end of the game, you'll get 1 conservation project. Pretty cool. Okay, engineer. Each time you build at least 1 building with the build action, you may build exactly 1 more of the same kind. But this doesn't obviously include special enclosures, like doesn't include the petting zoo, doesn't include the reptile house, doesn't include the aviary, okay? But just basically the regular buildings. But you can basically build it at normal cost. So you basically are building 2 of the same exact enclosure at the same time. You're still spending the money you would normally. It's not like you're getting to build one for free or something like that. You're still spending the extra money to do so, but now you're getting to do 2 at the same time. But they have to be, basically the same size, okay? Same kind. And then if you're able to completely cover your zoo map at the end of the game, you get 5 appeal. Okay, global breeding program. And this one probably should have been right after the last breeding program card. But anyways, oh well. This one, you need to have a partnership with at least 2 continents in order to play it into your zoo, okay? You need at least 2 partnerships with 2 continents already in your zoo. And then that's what you need to in order to play it. Then when you play this card, you place 2 player tokens on it. And then when you support a base conservation project, you may discard exactly 1 token as any icon. Like I said, if you have only 3 Africa icons, but you want to support the one that requires 4 Africa icons, you could take a token, a cube, off of here to do that. So that way you get the extra conservation points too, obviously, right? And then you get 1 conservation point for 5 supports of conservation projects. So if you supported 5, so it's just like the last one, basically, or it's just like this one, basically, right? It's almost exactly like it, except this one requires science icons, and this one requires the partnership of 2 continents, obviously. That's the only difference, really. But other than that, they're exactly the same card. So let's move on before I get tongue-twisted on that one. Okay, so this one is Expert in Small Animals. Your cost to play a small animal is reduced by 3 money. So whenever you play a small animal that's 2 or less, okay? 2 or less, small animal, you get 3 money, reduced by 3 money. So you're going to save some money if you're going to do a lot of small animals in your zoo, right? Because you're an expert in small animals. And then you get the instant effect for every animal that has that icon, meaning it's a 2-, okay? You're going to get 1 appeal, okay? 2-, 1 appeal. Sweet. Okay, moving on. This one's exactly the other, just like the last one, except it's for large animals instead. You can read, and it's going to give you a little bit more money on the reducing as well. Your cost to play a large animal is reduced by 4, and large animal would be 4+. So, animal enclosures that are 4 and up, basically. It's going to get you 2 appeal for each animal you have in your zoo that is 4 and up. You're going to get 2 appeal instantly playing this. And then, obviously, when you play a large animal into your zoo after you play this, that's 4 and up, it's going to reduce the cost by 4, while this one is for 2 and down, and it's going to reduce the cost by 3. Okay? And obviously give you 1 appeal for 2 and down. Cool. Okay. Expert in Europe. Okay, so each time you play a Europe icon into your zoo, you may build a 1 space enclosure for free. Okay, so that's one of the things you get to do. You get an instant effect of 1 appeal for every Europe icon you already have in your zoo, of course, but obviously, whenever you play a Europe icon into your zoo, you get to build a 1 size enclosure for free, so it's not going to cost you anything. And then at the end of the game, you get 1 conservation point for 5 occupied 1 space enclosures. So if you have 5 enclosures that are 1 space enclosures in your zoo, 1 size, you're going to get a conservation point at the end of the game. Okay, cool. Expert on Africa. So you get the instant effect of 1 appeal for every Africa icon you already have in your zoo. And don't forget, this is an Africa icon too, so you'd get at least 1 for playing this card into your zoo already. Anyways, okay, just like the last one, technically, it's exactly like the last one in that regards too, obviously, right? On the instant anyways. Okay, each time you play an Africa icon into your zoo, you may finish the current action. So after you finish the current action, so you play an Africa icon into your zoo. After you finish the current action, you may place any action card on the 1-tier location. Hence, the ability is called Clever. So some of the monkeys have the ability called Clever, which is basically letting you play the Clever ability, but with this sponsor card whenever you do an Africa icon into your zoo. Okay? Interesting. Some interesting ideas with that Clever ability for sure. And then at the end of the game, for every X token that you still have that you didn't utilize, you're going to get 1 extra appeal. So it's if you don't have to use an X token and you've got this card in your zoo, it might be worth holding on to at the end of the game for some extra appeal. That could easily be the reason why you win the game. Those extra points could help out. Okay, expert on the Americas. Each time you play an America's icon into your zoo, you may build 1 kiosk for free. Okay, these are what the kiosks look like. You get to build 1 for free every time you play an America's icon into your zoo. If you already have some America icons in your zoo, you're going to get 1 appeal for each of them, and you're at least get at least 1 for playing this card anyway. And at the end of game, if you have at least 5 kiosks in your zoo, you're going to get 1 conservation point at the end of game. Expert on Australia. This is probably one of my favorites of the expert cards on particular continents. Okay, anyways, each time you play an Australia icon into your zoo, you may place 1 card from your hand under this card, and you gain 2 appeal, and the ability is pouch, basically, and there's some animals that have the pouch ability. That's basically what you get to do. You get to put it under this card, though, and you get 2 appeal by placing 1 card from your hand. So if you've got some cards you're not going to use, this is one way of getting rid of them without actually, being forced to discard them later down the road, right? And then you get 1 appeal for every Australia icon already in your zoo, hence this one as well. Okay, expert on Asia. Each time you play an Asia icon into your zoo, you may build 1 pavilion for free, and then you get 1 appeal for every Asia icon already in your zoo, including obviously this one. Okay, we still have some more easy ones here. Sponsorship Primates. Okay, so this one requires you to have a primate icon already in your zoo, and you're going to get 1 appeal for every primate icon you already have in your zoo, and you will have at least 1 because it requires you to have at least 1. So most likely you're gonna get 1 appeal for playing this. Okay, and you'll notice there's no primate icon here, so you're not going to get extra appeal because there isn't one actually right here. So then during the income phase, when you gain, during the income phase of the break phase, right, coffee break or whatever you want to call it, you get a certain amount of money for depending on how many primate icons you have in your zoo. If you have 1, you get 3 money. If you have 3 primate icons, you get 6 money. If you have 5 primate icons in your zoo, you get 9 money. Pretty cool, right? And this card here, Sponsorship Reptiles, is exactly the same as the last card in every respect, except it's for carnivore icons, obviously. You're going to get, or should I say predator icons, obviously. You're going to get money based on predator icons in your zoo, and obviously you need a predator icon, obviously. Now, Sponsorship Reptiles is exactly the same as the last two, except it's for reptile icons instead. You're going to get money based on the amount of reptile icons you have in your zoo. And obviously you need to have a reptile already in your zoo. Sponsorship Elephants is exactly the same as the last one, but it works with herbivore icons instead. You're going to get money and appeal depending on, obviously, the amount of herbivore icons you have in your zoo. Okay, cool. Sponsorship Vultures is the exact same one as the last one, except it's with the bird icon. And so it's going to give you money based on how many bird icons you have in your zoo, and appeal, obviously. Okay, so I think that's all of the easy ones. So most of these are fairly hard, or definitely harder than some, for sure. So let's try to see if we can finish all of these. Okay, so in order to play the migration recording in your zoo, you also need to have a science icon already in your zoo. Each time you support a release into the wild conservation project, additionally gain 1 conservation point. You may support every release into the wild conservation project more than once. Okay, so now what does that mean, you're probably wondering. So let's grab one of these conservation projects, and I just happen to have the one that also is a bird, technically, for birds. Anyways, not that this has to be the conservation project that you need. But you'll notice it has release 1 bird into the wild. Release, that's the significance, right? Release. So when you take this conservation project, release an animal into the wild, okay? Hence this, migration recording, okay? Every time you release 1 animal into the wild, so for instance, in this case, it's a bird, you're going to get an additional conservation point. But not only that, but it'll allow you to actually put more than 1 cube down onto this particular card. Normally, you're only allowed to support 1 conservation project only once. But if you have this card already in your zoo, you could do this one twice, for instance. You could do it 3 times, technically. So that's basically what's going to allow you to do. You get to do it more than once for this, is basically what you get to do, as long as you have this already in your zoo. And then, obviously, you get an X token as an instant effect bonus. Okay, so Geologist. Okay, so for each space you cover that is next to a rock space, you gain 1 money. Okay, so if you have a bunch of spaces that are covered and they're next to rock spaces, you're going to get some money. Then you're going to get an instant effect of 3 appeal for every 2 rock icons you already have in your zoo, okay? So if you don't have any rock icons in your zoo before you play this, you're not going to get any appeal either. So you might want to do this. This is good to play maybe later when you have lots of rock icons in your zoo, right? For that effect. But and obviously for each space you cover that is next to you, you're going to get 1 money. So whenever you do that, you're going to get money. And then obviously you're going to get 1 conservation point if all rock spaces are connected. So that means every space that is touching a rock space, or should I say every rock space that is touching a building, okay, and they're all connected. So your zoo is basically interconnected throughout the whole zoo. There isn't a single rock space that isn't touching something that's already been built, right? If that's the case, then obviously you wouldn't get the conservation point. But that's Geologist. Okay, Basic Research. This one you have to play before you have 25 appeal, but you also technically have to have the sponsorship upgraded to level 2. So this isn't an easy one to play. And in fact, I actually was able to play this one and I had exactly 25. If I had 1 more appeal, I wouldn't have been able to play it. Whew, man, tight for sure. Basic Research, it's going to give you this instant effect, okay? You're going to get 1 conservation point for that you gain. So basically 2 icons. So for every 2 icons you have, whether it's animal icons or continent icons, for every 2, you're going to get 1 conservation point, okay? So if you had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, well, you're going to get 6 conservation points, okay? not likely to happen, especially since this is, kind of limited. Your time is definitely limited to play this. But you might have a few, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So if you had 4, you could get 2 conservation points or something like that, right? But then for each conservation point that you got this way, all other players are going to get 2 money as well. So it's also an interactive card as well. Okay, Technology Institute. It's going to give you an instant effect of 1 X token. During the break phase, the income phase of the break phase, you'll also gain 1 X token. And at the end of the game, if you have all 3 universities in your zoo, you're going to get a conservation point. Hydrologist. So this one's going to give you an instant effect of 1 appeal for every water icon already in your zoo. And then for each space you cover that is next to a water space, you get 1 money. And then if all water spaces are connected, just like with that one that was on rocks, the Geologist card, you're going to get, but instead of Geologist, it's Hydrologist for this one, right? You're going to get 1 conservation point. Okay, Explorer. Now in order to play this one, you are going to need to upgrade the sponsorship action to level 2, okay? And then each time you gain a continent or animal category icon that is not yet in your zoo, you get 1 appeal and you get 2 money for it. And then you get this instant effect as well. You get 2 money for each different continent or animal category icon in your zoo. So if you have a few, let's say you have 6 different icons in your zoo, right? That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That's a lot of money, right? So that's cool. So that's Explorer. So it could reward you if you still have some icons you haven't played yet, And then it's going to reward you, obviously, if you have a lot of icons already played. So cool. That's Explorer. Okay, Talented Communicator. Once again, this one has to be upgraded. The sponsorship action has to be upgraded to 2 to play this. You get this instantly, which is hire 1 Association Worker, which is the full-throated action. Some of the animals have that action, or at least 2 do. And then hire 1 Association Worker. So it's basically that action that some of the animals have, which is cool. You get an Association Worker. Nice. And then at the end of the game, if you have 9 reputation, you get 1 conservation point if you have at least 9. Okay, Diversity Researchers, one of my favorites. This one, you have to upgrade the sponsorship action to level 2 in order to play. But it's totally worth it if you want to have a huge zoo, okay? You get an instant effect of 2 money for each water and rock icon already in your zoo, okay? Then you may cover water and rock spaces. So now, if you have the Diversity Researcher in your zoo, you can actually cover up those water and rock spaces with enclosures. Cool, right? And then you get to ignore all requirements for water and rock spaces too. So if an enclosure has to be built next to a rock or next to water, you get to ignore that. Cool, right? That's really cool. And then at the end of game, for each water and rock icon in your zoo, you get, for a maximum of 3, you get 2 appeal. So, for each 3, you get 2 appeal. So 6 appeal would be the max you could get. Okay. Federal grants. Well, this one's pretty simple. You get 3 money instantly playing it, right? During the income phase, you get 3 money, or coffee break. During the coffee break phase, the income phase of the coffee break, you get 3 money. And at the end of the game, if you have at least 9 reputation, you get a conservation point. Okay, Quarantine Lab. This one is useful if you're playing with attack cards. If you're playing with the Venom, Constriction, Hypnosis, and Pilfering attack cards in the game, if you're playing with that, playing those actions as those particular actions, then this one's a handy card to have. If you're not, then this one might be one you want to skip, because it does give you some benefits, but I don't know if it's worth it necessarily. Maybe if it was free or something, I don't know. But you do get an instant effect of one X token, and then the effects of Venom, Constriction, Hypnosis, and Pilfering do not affect you. So basically attack cards don't affect you if you have the Quarantine Lab in your zoo. And then you get 1 conservation point for 5 different continent icons in your zoo. So if you have all 5, you get a conservation point at the end of the game. Okay, Veterinarian. Only got a few more here, so let's just finish this up. Veterinarian. Supporting a conservation project requires only 4. So if you have the veterinarian in your zoo, when you want to take the conservation project action, you don't actually have to have it on the 5th tier, nor do you have to have an X token to get it to the 5th tier. You can actually take that particular conservation project action at the 4th tier if you have the veterinarian already in your zoo. Cool, right? And then you get the instant effect based on how many universities you have in your zoo. If you have 1 university in your zoo, you get 2 money when you play this card into your zoo. If you have 2 universities, you get 5 money. If you have 3 universities, you get 10 money. Cool, right? And at the end of the game, if you have all 3 universities in your zoo, you get 1 conservation point. Okay, so the next few cards here are going to be contingent on having empty spaces in your zoo. It's going to reward you for having empty spaces in your zoo at the end of game. First of all, in order to play this, you can't have more than 25 appeals, so this is a beginning type of sponsor card to play. You get the instant effect of 1 appeal for each connected border space without buildings. So basically, for each connected border space that doesn't have any buildings. So, for instance, at the beginning of the game, you might have some border spaces, obviously, that aren't covered, but aren't connected to, okay, hold on. This one is confusing me for some reason. Gain 1 appeal for each connected border space without buildings. Okay, so this is a building here, so that's what it is. That's what's confusing me. So this is the building, and this obviously doesn't have a building there, right? But this is a building right here, potentially. This is all covered up right here, and it's on the borderline, but this isn't covered, obviously, right? And so for each connected border space, so basically, if you have an enclosure that's near a border space that's actually touching some borders, but not all of the borders next to it that are connected to those buildings, and those aren't covered up, you're going to get 1 appeal, basically, I believe. That's how that works. You might have to look that one up yourselves. I'm not going to spend more time on this one. But basically, that's what I'm assuming is what it's going to do. Now, you get 1 conservation point for each group of 6 spaces without buildings. So a group of buildings, meaning they're adjacent to each other. There's a group of them, a circular amount maybe, that are connected. 6 buildings, 6 spaces connected that don't have buildings. You're going to get 1 conservation point at the end of the game for each. So this will reward you if you don't fill in your zoo. You're going to get, for the native lizards, obviously the max is 25. You get 1 appeal for each connected rock space. Okay, so that one's a little easier than the last one to understand. So for each connected rock space that you've basically got an enclosure connected to, right, you're going to get 1 appeal. So that one's a lot easier to understand, obviously. And then you get 1 conservation for each, at the end of the game, you get 1 conservation point for each 2 isolated rock spaces. So rock spaces that aren't touching any enclosures, for instance. So if you have 2 that aren't touching an enclosure at the end of the game, you're going to get a conservation point, but for each. So if you have more than 2 and it's 4 or something like that, you can get more appeal. So that was obviously easier to understand for sure. That's native lizards. Native seabirds gain 1 appeal for each connected water space. So it's basically the same as the lizards. It's easy to understand. It's just like the lizards, except it's for water spaces instead of rock spaces. And then you get 1 conservation for each 2 isolated water spaces. So it's just like the lizards, exactly, except it's for water instead. So that's native seabirds. Okay, so free-range world monkeys. This one max 25, okay? So you can't play it if you have more than 25 appeal. Gain 1 appeal for each connected space with a placement bonus. So if you have some enclosures that are next to a space that are connected, adjacent, whatever you want to call it, next to a space that has a placement bonus on it, okay, you're going to get 1 appeal for each. Okay, so basically you haven't covered them up yet, is what it means. You're going to get 1 appeal for each of those. And then you'll get 1 conservation for every 2 isolated spaces with a placement bonus nearby. So this could reward you for a conservation point if you've got some isolated spaces with a placement bonus on it. Okay, basically. So for every 2, so if you have a placement bonus you weren't able to cover up, but you weren't able to cover up 2 placement bonuses, basically, you get a conservation point for it. If you weren't able to cover up 4, you're going to get 2 conservation points for it. That's basically what it means. Okay, the last 3. The last 3. 3 left. Okay, so in order to play this one, Waza Small Animals Program, you do need to have 3 reputation in order to play it. You do get an instant effect of 2 money for every animal you have in your zoo that is 2 or less. So it's going to reward you for already having some small animals in your zoo, for getting some money. And then each time you play only small animals in the animal's action. So if you're playing animals on the animal's action and you're only playing small animals, you may place 1 further small animal at the normal cost. And then after that, take 1 small animal from the display if available. So that's pretty cool. I like that one. That's pretty cool. Okay, Waza Large Animal Program. In order to play this, you need to have 6 reputation, and you need to upgrade the sponsorship card. Okay? Now, this one is very cool. You get an instant effect, first of all, of placing a 5-space enclosure for free. So if that wasn't, obviously the reason why you would play it, the next one is definitely the reason why you'd want to play it. If you play a large animal, you may ignore 1 condition of your choice. And you're probably wondering, what does that mean? So let's bring up some animals of what that means. What's a condition that you could ignore to play a certain animal into your zoo? It's not meaning this. It's not meaning this. Okay? It's meaning these, for instance. So, for instance, you could ignore the condition, this one here. So, to play the giant panda, it's really hard to do, right? Because you need a sponsorship with Asia, you need a bear icon already in your zoo, and you also need to have an herbivore already in your zoo. So you could cover up basically one of the icons is basically what it's going to let you do in order to play it into your zoo. You get to remove 1 of the conditions. You get to ignore 1 of your choice. So that's really cool. It can be one of these 3, for instance. But another thing it can be, and I did grab a whole bunch of choices, like it could be this, and obviously the reptiles in Asia. But another thing it could be is also this, because the Asian elephant, you need to upgrade animals action to level 2 in order to play the Asian elephant in your zoo. But if you have this sponsor card in your zoo, you can actually play, you could take that off. You could ignore that requirement of having the animal's action played in your zoo if you have this already in your zoo. That's powerful, right? That is very useful in a lot of ways. So that's what it means by that. And man, that is a really cool card. Haven't gotten to play with it yet, but man, the next time I see it, and if I don't, and it's not something that shows up in the beginning of the game, I'm definitely going to keep it. Okay, the last one is the Waza Special Assignment. This one's a little weird, a little wonky, but you do need to have 6 reputation in order to play it. Okay, you get an instant effect. This is an instant effect. Choose and mark either the 2- or the 2+ on this card. So basically you're going to mark it with a cube, most likely. Okay, you're going to put the cube there, or you're going to put it there. Okay, you're going to reveal cards from the deck and add the first card of the chosen kind to your hand. So if you covered this and an animal that needed an enclosure of 2 showed up, the first one that does, you're going to get to put into your hand. And obviously you're going to discard the rest. If you were to do this one, though, if you were to put the cube onto this one, the first animal that was a 4 size, that needed a 4 size enclosure, okay, 4+, 4 size, okay, then that is the animal card that you'd get to put into your hand, okay? That's cool, right? But that's where things aren't as good, because then you cannot play the unmarked kind anymore. Okay, and then each time you play a small or large animal, you gain 2 or 4 respectively. So every time you play a small animal icon into your zoo, and this was the one you covered up, you get 2 appeal. Every time you play a large animal into your zoo and you put the cube on this one, you're going to get 4 appeal. But here's the thing: if you didn't cover this one up and you covered this one up, you could no longer play the animals 2. Okay, you wouldn't be able to play them anymore. 2-, you would not be able to play them ever again. It prevents you from playing them, so it limits what animals you can play. You can no longer play small animals if this one is the one that you don't cover up. If you put a cube onto this one instead, though, then you can no longer play the big animals, the 4 and up animals in your zoo anymore either. So that's obviously it's not a good card. I don't know. I don't think it's really a good card in my eyes, because I mean, I have, sometimes I want to play some large animals, sometimes I want to play some small animals. But still, that's what's going to happen. So that's something you need to know before playing this. Is it worth playing? Because now you know how this one works. Man, I definitely saved one of the hardest for last, and one of the hardest choices to make in the entire game, if you ask me. But that is all of the projects in the game. I have gone over every single one. I think I've explained every single one. I might have gotten stuck on a couple of them. But anyways, if this helped you guys out, if you guys liked this video, don't forget to leave me a like on this video, and obviously the one before this. And I'll see you guys again next time.